Joanna's big complaint to me in recent days has been that and this is not a new complaint, but it's returned because I started reading the Book of Job, and then I had to keep interrupting it to read other stuff. So it took me a while to get through it, and it's so fucking boring, most of it, that I was carrying it around places with me.
Yeah.
And she
just as the Book of
hates
Job or the Bible?
by the Bible. And so it's
Yeah.
she gets
Yeah.
so unhappy when I carry to an orthodontist appointment, or our doctor who also is friends with some of our friends, or I took it to a family party of hers. And she's like,
Well, that is fun. I mean, schlepping around the Bible as your.
well, I always bring a book where I go,
Of course. No, of course. It makes you seem like you're one of those people is the thing.
Right.
That's my follow-up question for Joanna. If you were bringing Moby Dick to
Well,
all
it's
these
other
places,
things, which I does also that sometimes. Yeah.
is that categorically the same? Or is that better or worse? Because for me, it's two very different categories of people. Somebody showing
Right.
up to a family get together with Moby Dick is an absurdity, but I sort of, it's like a performative
Sure.
absurdity. But someone who brings the Holy Bible everywhere that he or she goes
Yeah.
is a different, it's I don't, that's not, I don't want to,
I
I don't want to go down that, I don't, that's too.
The answer is that it's not just the Bible, but the Bible is the worst. So
I think
a
the Bible
few
is
years
the
ago,
worst.
I when my daughter was taking a lot of ballet at the ballet place specifically, I would go, and there was this other family we'd see there, this other couple. My wife really, she had a couple crush and kind of wanted us to be friends with them.
Yeah.
But I was always reading a book that with the word pedophiles on the cover. And then she was like, you have to stop bringing that pedophile book to ballet. And so I started bringing the Bible, and she was like, oh God, it's worse. It's so much worse.
That combination is also the worst of the worst. It's oh, interesting. No more pedophilia. Oh, whoa. Wrong kind of
Yeah.
Bible reader. That's
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's been both good and bad. Because I was at a different family, kids thing, and I was reading I started taking the cover off taking the paper, jacket, which doesn't work with the
But
Bible.
doesn't it
which
say
is
the Bible?
No,
underneath
the
the cover
Bible
of
you
the
can't
Bible?
you can't
Yeah.
disguise it because it has gold
Yeah,
coating along the pages, and they're tissue thin, and
Yeah.
no, but I was reading some other big book, and a mom came up, and it's I don't know if she was flirting or just sort of passing the time, but she was like, oh, what are you reading? And I handed it to her, and it was The Magic Mountain. She just went,
Right.
good luck. I was like, what did I say? She was mad at me.
Well,
But another
that's
time
where
I was reading, I went to pick her up at work, and I was reading Inside the Third Reich, and this elderly man came up and had a long conversation with me, and it was lovely.
totally. I think the question is because part of our conversational niche is judging people for doing things that we would do, I guess.
Right,
So
right.
my question is, if somebody comes over for dinner and under their arm is remembrance of things past, that sort of performative, I think
That's not performative to me. That's I want to retrieve
exactly
this book if I need to.
exactly. I think that is almost entirely positive, somebody actually
For
lugging
sure.
the thing around in order to read it.
Yeah.
I think that if we had been 24 years old, I think it becomes more ridiculous. It becomes more of a prop, a
Yeah.
a
But I was still doing
costume.
it when I was
No, so was I. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what's so complicated about this. And it was equally sincere.
Right.
Except
right,
I did probably want people to. There is something about how much you want people to see it.
Right. Which was part of why I started taking the paper jackets off.
Right.
All
But
right,
I think I'm on your wife's side of this. I think that
Don't bring the Bible, please.
I think you can't bring the Bible places.
I'm Matthew Buckley Smith, and you're listening to SLEERICKETS, a podcast about poetry and other intractable problems. This week, I'm speaking with Brian about reading in public, writing with AI, and publishing while white and male. it's not necessarily new ground, but I think you will enjoy it. It's always just such a pleasure to speak with Brian. And for those of you true sickos in the audience, we're also going to be putting up a Secret Show episode in which we discuss the Book of Job at length. And I feel confident that all of you who included the Book of Job on your list of 4 books that defined you as a person on Substack, I feel confident all of you will be in perfect agreement with everything we say and will have no objections at the end of the episode. Just a little bit of news before getting into the conversation. I have a couple of poems in the new issue of Poetry London, edited by Neil. I don't know how to say his name. Niall Campbell. But there's some other terrific writers in there. Also, there is a very entertaining essay/interview that Mark Leidner just posted on his Substack, The Opaque Hourglass. It's an interview with Hilary Plum, who's a novelist, but even if you don't read that, it is a great interview, but even if you don't read that, I really encourage you to read just the introductory spiel where he talks about plot. What he says about plot is so much more, I agree with it so much more than I agree with almost anything I have seen people publicly write about plot in recent memory. And he addresses exactly the weird false dichotomy that comes up on this question so often. It was very gratifying to read. I very much encourage you to go check it out if you have any interest in storytelling at all. Finally, I was just really amused because I spoke with Cameron last week about a perennial obsession with imaginary devil worship from dating back, hundreds of years, and then continuing totally into the present day. And then I had a lot of my emphasis was on sort of Christian hysteria around imaginary devil worshippers. But I read a very sober, right-thinking, responsible, liberal essay in The Atlantic about AI devil worship. I really am not a fan of AI, and I don't I have no desire to defend it. However, the essay is hilarious because it truly is just another instance of people fearfully hallucinating non-existent devil worship in order to then fret about the threat it poses to the children. Truly, just so. It's truly it is to Rocco's basilisk as the Satanic Panic was to the God of Abraham. It's just it's a perfect reverse engineering of Hell House style religious hysteria, but it's all techno hysteria. So go check out the article by Lila Shroff. ChatGPT gave instructions for murder, self-mutilation, and devil worship. The deck for this is OpenAI's chatbot also said, "Hail Satan." She asked it to. It's a robot, and she told it to. She's very concerned about the demon Moloch. So straight out of Paradise Lost, truly, The Atlantic publishing prose translations of Book 2 of Paradise Lost. Amazing, really, really perfect and incredibly timely. Because as I said, Brian and I also talk about AI. I think you will enjoy the conversation. It's not, the topics are not new, but I think we do have some slightly new angles to take on them. And as I said, it is never a waste of time to listen to Brian be Brian. And if you'd like to hear more, go to SLEERICKETS.substack.com, check out The Secret Show, and you will be able to hear our brilliant and deeply insightful scholarly conversation about the Book of Job. All right, so maybe you can decode this. I'll call on your Jewish expertise. I went to see my doctor, who again is friends with our friends, and I was reading the Adam Kirsch book, which the cover is just big block letters on settler colonialism.
Yep.
And I saw her look at it, and then her her face fell. And then I had this thought, like, I actually don't know which direction her face is falling in, right? Because if you know
Yeah.
that book and that guy specifically, you know it's highly critical of the theory of settler colonialism. And like, I'll be reading the opposite book next week. But if you don't,
Yeah.
then it could just be that that term means it's like anti-Israel or something. And so I just said nothing, of course, and brought a different weird book the next week or the next time I saw her. But
I think your average Dr. Jew would
yeah,
assume a book with that title is anti-Israel.
sure, yeah, yeah,
But what's
probably.
complicated about that is the percentages, the
And she probably has complicated feelings about Israel, I
well,
assume.
that's the
Yeah,
thing. It's like it's at this moment, the percentage shifts of Jews who consider themselves very liberal
yeah, yeah,
are going down because of this, but overall approval of Israel is also going down. Like it's so hard to understand the crosstabs of every
yeah,
new poll that comes out that like I whereas even 5 years ago, I would have a decent sense of what some Jew I'm sitting with will probably think about something, given it's like in a secular situation and like they're wearing clothes that are secular clothes. Now I just have no idea. Like high school friends of mine, college friends of
yeah, yeah,
mine,
yeah, yeah.
other parents, like a lot of people have strong opinions, and the ability to guess is
Yeah, and the
is
political polls have gotten all wonky, and because
totally.
Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan are all flip, like it's all a whole different.
Yeah,
Who
it's
knows? It's
it's
all a
and
yeah
we're
up for
we're in a
grabs.
moment of severe flux, I think, where I think five
Yeah,
years
yeah,
ago I could anticipate, I could guess, and 5 years from now, I think I will be able to guess again. But right now, it's a strange time.
yeah. But I definitely will never know what it's like to be an attractive woman. It was a strange transition, but I promise it's related. But the woman who cuts both our hair, she has like she's very, very funny. She's a good. I should try to get her on the podcast. She's like one of the most virtuosic talkers I've ever met. But she has like long, long sessions with my wife because she colors her hair some.
Yep.
And so she described that when she's like she's a very weird, nerdy person, but she's an attractive blonde woman. And so when she goes out in public somewhere, men will come bother her, and she's taken to adopting. I mean, she's Southern. She has a distinctive Southern accent. We live in the South, just but like she's taken to adopting a particular voice, and she's taken to pretending to be mildly cognitively disabled when they talk to
Jesus.
her. And she finds this like fairly effective, but it takes a little while to sink in.
Right.
I
Because
might
it's so disappointing
well,
when a
like
guy
it's like
comes and like
where it just like she starts talking about the kinds of problems she has, and they realize like, oh, this is but so my new
I,
recommendation is if you carry the Bible around, people will not talk to you. Although maybe the one guy who does
well,
talk to you
aren't
will never let
somebody,
you
yeah,
go. Yeah.
exactly. You're signing up for something else there. A related question, if we're just doing stream of consciousness stuff here, is when you are getting your hair done, do you
Hmm.
want to be in conversation with the person?
Normally, no. Normally, I would say silence is. I'm totally fine with silence. Molly is just incredibly funny.
Okay.
And so
No,
she's
that's
just
great.
like an
That's great.
unusually funny and good talker who also just like does. Her boyfriend was obsessed, or that
No.
she lives with was obsessed with getting a Ring camera because he was worried about crime. And so he installed a Ring camera, and then he was like really obsessively watching the footage, and she thought this was silly. And so she rented a Grim Reaper costume and Ken like walked up in the middle of the day to the Ring camera, leaned forward and snapped a photo with a weird old timey camera, and then walked away just and like said nothing just to wait for him to eventually see that.
Do we know that what happened with that story? Did
He
he
was
see it?
freaked out, except that then like at this point she does so many weird things to him
Right.
that he started like
Yeah.
okay,
Just
all right, that's got
assume.
to be
Yeah.
Molly. But like yeah,
Yeah.
that this is Molly. So no, I actually should try to get her on because she's very
Yeah,
funny.
I would also like to hear. If you get her on, I want some I'd like to submit some questions.
Definitely, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like
If
like
anybody else
what
has questions for the
like
woman who
what
cuts her hair.
percentage does she think her services rendered are haircuts versus performance during the
Yeah, yeah,
haircuts?
yeah, yeah.
Like I think that in a certain type of service industry where the actual like
Totally.
skill does matter, but you
Yeah,
also are spending time with that person, I'm curious what her understanding of her value is. And because
yeah,
I
yeah,
wouldn't be
yeah.
surprised if she said 80% good haircuts, 20% like comfortable being around there, or if she said 8
50-50 or
and I make them feel good for in the chair, just like chatting, and it's
yeah,
and
yeah.
20% like a haircut is a haircut. So yeah, I'd like to delve deeper there.
Yeah, I know for sure. Yeah,
But
any other
apparently,
questions
delve
people have?
deeper is one of the signs that you're using ChatGPT. Where I've been saying delve deeper for like a
Yeah,
decade as a way to talk
certainly,
to my students, but
right.
that's a ChatGPT signal now.
But
Where if you write,
you've helped to create that, right? Because what it's doing is it's grabbing hold of indicators of like literacy and smartness and
absolutely,
yeah.
and it actually my actual writing helped to
Oh, I'm
create
sure.
that.
It's
Like it has
yeah,
been
yeah.
trained on like
Your
articles and
books.
novels of
Yeah.
mine. Exactly. Yeah, but it ruins phrases for me.
Yeah, I did read the Megan O'Rourke piece, which was bone chilling.
Yeah, I love that piece because it was its basic thesis, I think, is that when people talk about AI, you have some people who think like we need to embrace it because to not embrace it would be the same as to not embrace Google and like that's
Right.
crazy and it's just technology. And then you have like all the professor types, and myself probably included in this, which is like we have to eliminate it from academics because the skills you're teaching are can't really coexist. And what she was saying is like this combination, this I don't know, this complicated middle ground where it is helpful even to smart, capable, thoughtful people,
Yeah.
but it's such a slippery slope where like if all you wanted to do is to like look up some stuff for you, which it's really good at, it will then say like, do you want me to put this in outline form? Or would you
Yeah,
like to
yeah.
find out a little bit more about this? And even to people like the professor types,
Yeah, yeah.
you sort of want to say like, well, why not see what it has?
Yeah,
Like,
because
why
there's
not
enough
like
little
let it
dumb tasks you have that it can
right,
do very easily that are annoying to
right.
do.
And the slippery slope part of it, I think we sort of understand it, but I don't think we understand the severity of it. Like in my mind, before reading this, the slippery slope argument is like, well, if it does research for you, then you'll ask it to do this. And if you ask it to do this, then it will edit your whole and write your whole thing. But what she pointed out, which I've been noticing since, is its ability to anticipate what that next slip on the slope is and to say, and to like give it to you even before you would have asked for it on your own. And that's where to expect a 13 or 16 or 19-year-old to have any willpower is not the right word because I think they come in with willpower, but any ability to push against that, I think is too much to ask. So it's dangerous. I really, again, if we're saying what we would have thought years ago versus what we think now, a year or two ago, I was way more sanguine about this. I was way more on the side of like, you know what? It's going to exist. Let's teach kids how to use it. Let's like, figure out.
Yeah.
And now I'm way more of a pessimist. I think it's a nightmare in ways that we don't even understand yet.
Yeah, it does seem like it's. I mean, it falls squarely on the heebie-jeebie side of the spectrum, and don't go near it. Although I did appreciate her frankness about her giving it a shot and starting to feed. She says, without my intending it, ChatGPT quickly became a substantial partner in shouldering the mental load that I, like many mothers and women professors, slightly annoying addition, carry.
Yeah, yeah.
Easing invisible labor doesn't show up on the university pages that tout the wonders of AI, but it may be one of the more humane applications. Formerly overtaxed, I found myself writing warmer emails because the logistical parts were already handled. I had time to add a joke, a question, to be me again. Using AI to power through my to-do lists made me want to write more. It left me with hours and energy where I used to feel drained. And like that she is so conscientiously and consciously and openly doing this just indicates how many people are doing so without acknowledging it. I mean, I it all gives me the creeps, and I think it's a totally crazy slippery slope, and it's going to erode our powers of cognition and critical faculties. And it's not just the writing; it's the reading. We're going to be asking it to summarize things that other people asked it to write, and so I want nothing to do with it. But I also think like the cat is so out of the bag. Like I don't think there's a way
Oh,
to
I mean,
eliminate it from
exactly. And like even with my eighth graders, like I still teach a small enough group of kids and I see their writing on a daily basis. So if
Yeah.
somebody hands in a ChatGPT written essay, I know that it's ChatGPT. But as you say, on the reading side, if somebody had a late basketball practice that afternoon and I've assigned 20 pages of, Kazuo Ishiguro's Never Let Me Go, like
Yeah. Yeah.
it does a great job of having done like here are two paragraphs with all the details and all the plot and character that any teacher can ask you about, even for the reading quiz. If I try, like, it,
Yeah.
and this is a conversation for another episode
Sure.
because I don't think either of us has thought this out clearly enough, but it makes the very question of like, what skills are we teaching and for what purpose less obvious to me? Like an
Right.
easy dismissible way of saying it is like now more than ever, it's important to be able to analyze at a sophisticated level. I don't even know if that's true because I think a lot of what we teach at the middle school, high school, college level as analysis can be done by ChatGPT better than we can teach kids to do it. And if that's the case, it's like, what is this skill set for? Like, when are
Yeah.
we? What version of analysis are we teaching? Like, maybe it's to train a psychologist. They need to know how to be an analyst or an analyst or a dentist or a chief product officer or something. But then like, how do you get to those jobs? And do you use ChatGPT on the way? And like, I just I don't know whether learning about biology and math and literature is the way to train minds anymore. And I don't know what would replace that. And I don't know if anybody knows. And now it's sort of sophomore year, silly college conversations because we're all just saying stuff. But these are real questions. I don't know anybody who has successfully begun to answer them.
No, I mean, I think she does make a point about how like there is something that you gain from decades on decades of doing this that is hard, that like allows you to see the difference, say, between a good ChatGPT essay and a good essay, that is pretty hard to perceive otherwise. And part of that is all of the layers of critical training that you get from first being exposed to this as a kid and sort of over time slowly gaining some of those tools. I don't know that, like, I think in some ways the skills we teach kids in school or that we teach ourselves throughout life, it may be that there's increasingly this category of like things humans do sort of because they're worth doing, which includes like chess or other physical combat, which like any number of machines can do a gajillion times better than we can. But there's still
Right. I'm
things that
just
we do,
saying
and
that
like even sex, like the reason we have sex with each other is not like to optimize the most maximal experience
I
you could have, but like to do
I
this thing
totally
that's worth
agree.
doing, you know?
I just think it is profoundly underexamined about whether the things we have kids do for a decade
Yeah,
are the things that they should be doing now that we have a tool. Like there's something that's so depressing about what you just quoted in that essay, which caught my eye too. Which like after 30 years of studying
yeah.
literature,
Right.
I have now developed the skill to differentiate between ChatGPT's literature and human literature. And it's just like, wait a minute,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
you spent 30 years so you could do that? And like you need
Yeah,
to
yeah.
spend 30 years and like every part of that is upsetting to me as opposed to indicative of a skill set that I think we should be training our children to have. And this is, I mean, I'm someone who trains children in this skill set, so I don't.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's funny because I think about like my father-in-law, who's a very good retired dermatologist, and his, I mean, has physical skill and has various other experiences and ran a small business, but like his sort of big primary powerful ability that he brought to the field was that he had spent many decades looking at smudges on people's skin, and he knew at a deep gestalt level what this looked like versus what that looked like in a way that a textbook can't teach you, in a
Yep.
way that
Yep.
rules of thumb can't teach you. He knew like, well, this is cancerous and this isn't. And that is exactly the kind of training you could get a machine to process very, very quickly. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Is it still worth having a
Exactly.
human
I just
being be
don't know
able to
what
do
the
that?
moral of
Yeah,
that
I don't
story
know.
is,
No, I
right?
know,
Like I
no
don't
idea. I no idea.
that's what's so complicated. Like exactly. Like that is a great example and I don't know what to do with that example. And
No,
that's
not at all.
so to continue down the theme of
useless.
problems that I really don't know to
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
extent to
yeah.
which they are good or
I thought you were going to say
bad.
like obsolescent human vessels.
No,
Yeah.
no.
The white male
Yeah,
subcategory. Right.
well, no, because it's the same world of like
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I know what I feel about most things, but I don't know what I feel about the fact that white men aren't winning literary prizes anymore. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's so this article I sent you, it's called The Death and Life of the Straight White Man's Novel. It's written by Mark Tracy in the New York Times, and it's a substantial article. They sent it out to their people who get up the what's it called where they send something to your phone as though it's an emergency, but it's really
Oh,
just what
was
they
this
want
one
you
of
to
their like
read.
articles to read kind of things?
Yeah, they like blasted it out to all to everybody's phone who gets my wife's gonna
Okay.
kill me. I mean, she's not because she doesn't listen to this podcast. But
Okay.
what's it called when you like get an alert, like a
Oh, an
news
alert. Oh,
alert?
you got an
Yeah.
alert? Oh, it
So
was
like
like you are a white male
I got a
novelist. You should.
news I got a news alert that the death and life of a straight white man's novel is has just been published.
It's
And I'm
because
like,
the New York
what's
Times
this? What's this
AI
alert?
bot
What's this?
had
Exactly.
you pegged. Yeah.
Actually, it's not done with AI. Will
Okay,
have you
good.
know,
Glad to
but
know. I'm very glad to know that.
yeah, take it back, take it
Yeah.
back.
All right.
Um, but
Rescinded.
what's fascinating about this article is it parallels a lot of the work that you have been doing in proving that straight white men aren't winning poetry awards as often as they used to. This is more about like literary fiction and add some dopey quotations that I think you're going to want to get into. But just as a larger question for this conversation, I don't know how I feel about this. Like
Yeah.
I don't know whether it is a good thing that straight white males are not winning all these awards that we used to dominate, or if it's a bad thing because it's arbitrary in some way, or if it says something useful about society, or whether these awards matter at all. I also think that one of the traditional and current right wing pushbacks to this trend is like, don't blame the 23-year-old for all the success of previous generations of straight white men, because the 23-year-old straight white male today didn't have any of those successes. And I don't know what I think about that either. I don't know whether that's true, like whether there really isn't still a wave that the 23-year-old straight white male is surfing on, or whether it's bad if it is true. There are just a lot of issues here that I would like to chat through with you and hope we can come to something closer to an opinion that we sincerely hold.
Yeah. Is that line specifically that like one should draw a real distinction between a white male intellectual space person under X age and a white male intellectual space person above X age? Like, is that a distinction right wingers are making a lot? I feel like it's a distinction I've made, but
Well,
like,
that's the thing. No,
yeah,
I feel like it started in the obvious two right wingers that like, why are you blaming white people for stuff?
sure, sure,
My
sure, yeah,
life
yeah, yeah,
sucks.
maybe so,
Like
yeah,
it's like, why are you blaming
right,
people in Appalachia for this? Like they're living
mm-hmm.
in poverty. Like, why are you blaming a
Yeah,
group who's actually has high suicide rates for this? Why are you like, and that I
yeah,
think is a very compelling,
yeah, the class
rhetorical
argument, yeah, yeah,
device.
right,
It's we should be talking about class, not race,
right,
which I sort of agree with and sort of don't. And we can go into that more if you want. But now I feel like that argument has almost persuaded through from the right through the center and even the center left. And I frequently hear parents, especially of white boys, say all this shit where it's so easy to be white and so hard to be black. Like, what does that have to do with my kid? And like, why
yeah,
is my kid learning about that? And that has become not accepted wisdom, but an accepted opinion to have in a way that
yeah.
certainly post George Floyd during the pandemic, and in some areas I was in pre, that was not something that you could articulate without fear of being screamed at.
yeah, certainly the atmosphere is not what it was then. Do you have two little boys who are white or who are now considered? It is like the way in which like whiteness is a strange sliding scale that
Yep.
just over time isn't. Yeah, it's like a
Right.
whole
Or
other interesting
the old
question.
thing where Irish people white and are
Yeah,
Jews
yeah, yeah.
white,
Well,
and
and
what
you
is
also
it?
have the thing about like, oh, well, in a few years it'll be all minorities. Like, no, you misunderstand what whiteness is. Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
It's
Hispanic
just you're
people
going
will
to be
become white. Asian
calling
people will
new
become
people
white.
white.
It'll yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So you have these conversations, and you also have these boys. Does it feel like a reasonable opinion to have, or does it just feel like something you hear reasonable people saying, and you say, "Oh, you wouldn't have said that 5 years ago"?
I, in the moments where I'm in conversations like this, have been increasingly trying to figure out what people are saying that in response to.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And
yeah,
and
yeah, for
that's
sure.
where I think it can be a little bit silly.
Yeah,
Like like why is my eighth grader reading Toni Morrison? They haven't even read Hemingway,
sure.
like
Yeah,
that, like you shouldn't make my kid feel bad. And like those are
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
that's not a good, like nobody, even the people who
Right.
say that don't even know,
I
like
don't know
that's
that I
not
don't
a
know that an eighth grader really like if that's I don't
right.
know that either of those writers is ideal for
I
an eighth
totally
grader.
agree.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. Like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
where I'm not, but that's in the moments where I find myself rolling my eyes, it's usually because the thing that they're saying that in reaction to either doesn't matter or isn't actually accusing their kid of anything, or
Yeah,
like
yeah,
doesn't
yeah, yeah, yeah.
exist. Like why should uh, chemistry and math be taught with race in mind? And
Right.
my response is
Yeah.
like, is it? Like I don't is that a real thing where chemistry and math is taught with race in mind? And if so, is that true for like more than 6 minutes of a sidebar in a textbook where it's like an important lady in science? And like, is that
Sure. Yeah.
bad? Do you not want her there? Like
Yeah.
that's where I find the conversation typically going. I find it very infrequent that a school, or even over the last couple of years, a politician will say something that is so disagreeable that people will say like, but why are you casting aspersions on my 17-year-old son who never got the benefits? Like I don't know if those aspersions really are casted that cast
Cast. Yeah.
that often.
Yeah. Like that's something that I think is like I was talking to Steve Knepper about just the strangeness of having so many voices in our ears. But there is this funny phenomenon of like everybody's saying this, nobody's saying this. That does. I mean, I agree with you that it's almost always best to say like, what are we specifically talking about? What and it like it happens in all sorts of directions. Even like I realized because my wife recommended this interview with a woman Jessica Crispin who wrote a book called "What's Wrong with Men," and I realized like most of the podcasts I listen to are either like hyper just nerdy or like irreverent leftists or like weird intellectual libertarians. It's sort of like they're not. I realize like I don't have enough of the like mainstream middle of the road liberal in my diet, and so listening then
Yeah.
to a conversation that was in that region, she said like, "Oh, you should really listen to this woman. She's so nuanced in the way she talks about men." And it was like laughable. It was like crazy.
Yeah.
She was like, "Well, obviously, all sex in America is really just a system of torture and violence,
Right.
and
It's just rape.
obviously
Right. It's
men
going back
all are."
to,
And she was just like
yeah.
saying these things about what men all are to a male interviewer in a way that he was sort of nodding along with. And I thought, like, well, but obviously you don't mean him, right? And you don't mean your
Right.
husband, and you don't mean the
Right.
men you spent. So it. But I think this
I
happens
totally
in
agree.
all different directions. People do
Yes,
this.
which
Like
is why,
this sense of
sorry,
what the
finish it. Yeah.
zeitgeist is that is actually really hard to put your finger on.
Yes, and because you and I live and operate within this very, very small niche element of the zeitgeist, which is focused on poetry and literary fiction,
Yeah, yeah.
you can speak to specific details which are in this article in the New York Times. So, No white men are among the 25 most recent nominees for the New York Public Library's Young Lions Prize for debut fiction,
Yeah,
the 14 latest millennial finalists for the National Book Award, or the 20 current fiction and poetry fellows at Stanford's eminent Wallace Stegner Fellowship. Now, there are two ways to react to that.
yeah, yeah.
One, as J. Caspian Kang did on his podcast, which is like, what is the Young Lions Prize? Like it's just like you're cherry picking these three random things and saying there are no white guys there. Like this affects who, why, and how. But the other way is that like we got to look at something, and like
Yeah, yeah.
finalists for the National Book Award and the Wallace Stegner Fellowship, like in a world where nothing actually matters because it's all, self-indulgent nonsense, like these things do matter. And if it's true that zero white men were the 14 latest, it says millennial finalists, which is a weird word. I don't know if they're non-millennial finalists for the
Well,
National Book
he is
Award.
drawing sort of a line between generations.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But then zero white men in the 20 current fiction and poetry fellows, like that is a decision. And the question that I am coming to you with this article is whoever making that decision obviously an anti-white racist who's trying to redress sins of the past, which
No.
seems like that would be bad?
Yeah.
Or is it possible
but you're blending two things there, right? An anti-white racist and somebody trying to make up for the sins of the past. Those are slightly different things.
That's fair. I'll give you either or on that. Is whoever's choosing the 20 Stanford Wallace Stegner Fellowship winners, is that person either an anti-white racist or somebody trying to address sins of the past? Probably not the former, maybe the latter.
Oh, definitely. I think trying to be seen as the latter, but definitely not the former. Definitely at least having the latter in the back of his mind or her mind.
Right. So in our right-thinking mind, is that problematic, good, meaningless? Because I could argue all three right now, and I honestly don't know what I feel.
Well, I just think anytime you're picking prize winners, or certainly if you're picking like people who are going to be included in a table of contents or on a board or in a group of like fellowship winners or whatever, fellows, anytime you're doing that kind of selection, you're going to have 50 things in your head about what you should and shouldn't be choosing and how you should and shouldn't be perceived to be choosing. And like even having conversations with the other people on the choosing committee, you're going to have all of these different factors. And now a very heavily weighted factor is what is the currently adjudicated social justice value of the identities of the people we're choosing. Like that has a lot of weight right now in certain circles. And so I almost feel like it's not even that people are choosing in response to their own feelings. They're just choosing in response to a known standard of like public assessment. And so like that's just become like a very heavily weighted factor. And like before there would have been 50 other, and like there would have been and like
well, would there have been 50 other? Because that is something that I or would there have been 3 other? Like even if those 3 were like comes from a good family, was recommended to me by a professor I trust, and looks the part.
Oh no, but also like has a grudge versus this person. Was this person's student? Did my like I had a good interaction once. I owed a favor to this guy who owed a favor to me. Like I think there's just like tons of those complicating factors, and this is why I think they've just never been fair. And maybe there have been periods when, for one reason or another, selection correlated more highly to quality than not. But I think for the most part, it's just like it's always bullshit.
Okay, so stop. So implicit in what you are saying, and not explicit, you haven't gone there yet, but implicit in what you were saying is this has always been bullshit.
Yes.
So this variety of bullshit, you don't really care about. Like it's always been fake. It's always been arbitrary. It's always been based on who owed what favor to whom and who feels like they're going to be able to look into the mirror or in the, in the photograph of whatever. So you don't give a shit that 20 out of 20 people who got the Stegner are not white males.
I give a shit, but not for like high-minded reasons. I give a shit because I remember my dad saying that he got a really good piece of advice from a architecture professor of his. He complained that like, well, it's always these annoying bad projects that win prizes. And his professor's challenge was, well, why don't you try to design the kind of project that wins a prize and do it well? And then he did, and he started winning some prizes. And what sank in for me in recent years is that advice doesn't actually apply to me anymore, because
Yeah.
it's not, they're not looking for the kind of prize that wins. They're looking for the kind of person who wins. And it might have been that in other times it would have gone that way. Like,
Yeah.
I would have been eligible because I'm a white guy in a way that other people would not have been. I do give a shit because it affects me, but I don't think that it's more or less fair than it has ever been.
So you're making the distinction between like something that's morally wrong and something that is makes your career less likely to be a massive success.
Totally, yeah. I don't think it's morally worse or better, but I do think it's worse for me personally. And I think it would be hard to argue seriously that it isn't worse for me personally.
I totally
Yeah.
agree. I totally agree. But what to do with that? Like
I
what's
don't
the
know.
but you spend some time researching who wins the poetry prizes
Sure, yeah, yeah.
as a hobby that
Yeah,
sort of vindicates your frustration
sure,
to
sure,
be
yeah.
you in this moment. Why? Like what do you do with that emotionally, psychologically, logistically? Like what
Yeah. I
just like the same reason is like what does one do with an article like this?
Oh, I laugh at all of the pull quotes from other people because they're
All right,
all
so give me
absurd,
some.
except for maybe Sam Kahn. Sam Kahn and like one other guy had a somewhat reasonable comment, but for the most part, the pull quotes are just like laughably, like bizarrely wrongheaded.
All right, so let's go to a
Yeah.
couple of those.
Here's Alexander Hamon. If a very small number of people who are not white male heterosexual gained a likely temporary foothold in a fringe cultural practice, which is what literary fiction is, there has to be a raging sense of privilege, neo-Trumpist or outright Trumpist, to claim that that constitutes a crisis. And he had to throw in
Yeah,
the
I
Bosnian-born
agree.
novelist and
So
screenwriter. I mean, just so fucking just like shit-eating smug, just like blind to his own situation. Like, shut the fuck up! You're an extremely successful novelist, Alexander Hamon, who is a white guy who's like it. I don't think he's pulling up the ladder behind him, but like, boy, he like a guy who was pulling up the ladder behind him couldn't sound different if he was.
massive agree. I think he comes off as a giant prick and also a giant prick without a sense of his audience.
Yeah, yeah,
But take what he says. Do you
yeah, yeah, yeah.
disagree with it?
Uh,
Because I thought he was going to say something different, but I thought he was going to like do that whole big run up
right.
and then say, if you're made upset by that, then go fuck yourself. But he doesn't say that. He says, if you think this constitutes a crisis, then go fuck yourself.
Well,
And
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah,
and
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know what I mean? So
Right,
do
right,
you
right, right.
disagree?
He's not saying it's not happening. He's saying
Yeah.
worrying about it happening is stupid. Yeah, I think that's wrong and stupid. And I think if you went to any other era and you pointed to whatever factor was most responsible for the lack of correlation between selection and quality and said, here's what's happening. For example, like when Poetry said, like, hey, have you noticed that Jory Graham is giving the prize to the guy she fucks? Like when somebody pointed that out, a lot of people got mad, but like it was happening, and she's not alone, but like, and she does, I should say, like, she does write some good poems. There's plenty, but like, she was so guilty of that in such a laughable way, and that, like, pointing that out, there's nothing wrong with it. And the same way that was not, no, there's nothing wrong with pointing out when it was like all fucking white guys winning the prize. Like, pointing out what is currently causing the problem is totally fair game. I think that pretending that there has not always been something playing that role would be silly.
Yeah.
But pointing out what the current version of it is seems like totally fair.
Yep. I agree with
Yeah.
that. New
Uh,
new quotation, either that you like or dislike.
yeah. Francine Prose, a novelist and critic, was similarly skeptical. You've run the world for thousands of years and now you're feeling disenfranchised? What is this? What are
Well,
you talking about?
that's the thing, right? To me that this is the core of the entire conversation. The lack of specificity in the antecedent of you is the problem here, right? And what I don't know is it just goes to the heart of this question that I'm going to return to, which is like, is it hard to be a straight white man right now?
In certain arenas, yes, in lots of arenas, it's a huge advantage, and it still is
Yeah, I
like,
think
and
that's the
both
yeah,
for both people. Like, I think what's
yeah,
totally true
yeah,
is I have
yeah.
gotten leases, and even in very certain contexts, jobs that I wouldn't have gotten if I weren't a white guy. So like it
Yeah.
totally benefits me, like financially. I think like various other leases, loans, all sorts of things have benefited me. Interactions with cops have given me the benefit of the doubt at times.
Yes.
But
Yes. Yeah.
like, and also in some arenas, it's a huge disadvantage, and it
Yeah.
just would be silly to deny that.
That's a great point, and it's actually a point that you almost never see those things coupled. Like, I don't know if I've ever read an article that presents honestly the dramatic benefits of being a straight white man,
Yeah.
along with the arenas where it's
It's a total
detrimental.
deficit. Like it's a
Yeah,
crazy deficit at times. Yeah.
yeah, and that I think that the fact that those two conversations are happening in parallel but not together is what leads to the ridiculousness of these quotations in the article
Right.
and the moral certainty on both sides that they are correct.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's this weird game about what the zeitgeist is or who's it. I mean, it's the same with
Right.
like liberals pretend that cultural power is nothing and political power is
Yes.
everything, and
Yes.
conservatives pretend the opposite, right?
Yes.
They say
Yes.
like, oh, we're downtrodden, we're disempowered, everybody hates us. We like control all of the levers of the government. But yeah, like in most TV, like on most TV programs, you will get shit on. No. I mean, did you see? I know you turned me on to Freddie DeBoer. I don't know if that's a publicly acceptable thing to say or not. But I do find him at least worth reading much of the time. But he quoted J. Caspian Kang from the same podcast in like an even more egregious instance, which was he was laughing and sneering at people who were complaining about this by saying, "All you want is just to write in the New Yorker. Stop complaining." Like as somebody who writes in the New Yorker,
Yeah, I know. It's so
it's just like
awful. It's
couldn't be
so
more obnoxious.
it
Um,
and that's the other thing. People just don't have a sense of how little people want to hear very successful people's opinion about how difficult or not difficult it is to achieve what they've achieved. Like it's I there was like a triple
yeah, yeah,
negative
yeah,
there,
yeah,
so
yeah,
I'll
yeah, yeah,
take
yeah.
that back. But it's like it's the president saying, "All you guys, all you do is want to succeed in politics. Like, get over it," you know. And
Right.
it's like,
Yeah.
well, why are you?
Yeah,
That's not a
yeah.
good point.
Yeah, I got an email today that gave me a little bit of pause because it made the I think like a gentle but like thoughtful point that basically said like from my perspective you're successful. And so like I know to you it may not seem like you're successful, you but like I'm less interested in the difference between you and the people you think are successful than I am in your account of what is going on in the arena that you do have access to.
Yeah, I think that's totally
It
fair.
seemed like very reasonable.
Yeah, I think that that's totally fair. I think part of what is consistently thrilling about your podcast is that you are very successful and you won't admit it. That you won't take joy in that. You won't you won't acknowledge it. You know,
Yeah,
so like I I do think that there's that a tension there of almost every not everybody and probably not a sizable amount, but a lot of people listening to you would kill to have a podcast who's listened to by as many people as yours is, and mostly your publications, and hearing sort of the frustration with which you are living this life that they would think of as successful is exhilarating and infuriating. And I
yeah,
think that that
yeah,
tension creates a lot of the success of your podcast, which I don't think is a compliment or an insult, but I do think
sure, yeah, yeah, yeah,
is a complicated
yeah. And I want to be,
aspect of
I
all
want
of
to
this.
be, I want to be, I want to remain aware of the risks of like sore winnerism, which is extremely unappealing. And so I want to, yeah, I want to try to like whatever my gripes and complaints, I want to be thoughtful about
And I
just
think you
remembering
are
how that may
thoughtful about it,
land.
but you're
Yeah,
also thoughtful about the fact that it's all just arbitrary
Yeah,
goalposts.
yeah, yeah.
You know, like
Totally,
that's
totally.
where
Yeah.
it's not like where this is an investment banking podcast, you know, and like you
Yeah.
have like you've made
Yeah.
your, $108 million and what you really want is the 700 million and like people are, it's that like poetry doesn't matter, right? So like you trying to you
Yeah.
trying to say like getting these books published is meaningless because or something like it's all just
It's
what
all me.
you're
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's all where you draw that line in whatever sandbox and whether you can cross that line or not and whether it's fun to be celebratory of your having crossed one line or more fun to be pissed off at those who have crossed future lines.
Yeah. I do
I
think
don't
there's, I
know.
mean, I haven't figured out the right way to account for it, but I think in a way that may be different in Australian poetry, I think money is like a significant scale in like in the list of ascending orders of meaninglessness. Some of those orders of meaninglessness come along with like the ability to support oneself. And to me, like there is
Yeah.
that's where there is sort of a meaningful distinction, but I don't think in a way that I've given serious thought to.
Sorry about that. Owen rolled his ankle,
Oh
but
shit.
it's fine. Yeah,
Okay.
he's all right.
Okay.
But I wasn't focused for the last part of that conversation. So you were saying Rebecca Mackay had a quotation?
Oh yeah, yeah. She had one that kind of like I sort of my heart went out to her because it didn't seem
Oh,
as like
yeah.
pig-headed. It just felt like hilariously oblivious. The novelist Rebecca Mackay said none of the several prize juries she has sat on, including for the National Book and Pen Faulkner Awards, made decisions with the intention of excluding white men. It was just that it was book by book the very best books we saw, she said. It's like, and she's just clearly has like in no way is it occurring to her that this is what like 99% of every like all white male jury would have said about their own selections in the
Yes,
past.
exactly. But what's interesting about Mackay is later on in this article, she follows it up with a very bold and I think inaccurate statement. She writes, right now, one of the most important things being written about in America is identity. If you're talking about a young, straight, white, able-bodied man with English as his first language, and I can understand that it would be hard to write about identity with anything other than guilt or anger. Neither of those necessarily makes for the greatest subject matter.
Right. Well, I'm curious what your response to that was because I had a kind of a two-part thought.
My response is that I don't know what important things being written about means. Like I
Right, right,
don't
right, right, right.
I don't go to not literally fiction, especially for like what is important to
Yeah.
write about right now. And it doesn't surprise me that if she's just choosing the best books, but that's within the framework of she likes books that are important to write about right now, like it's
Yeah.
all jumbled, like it's all
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
she's defining terms while pretending that these terms are neutral, which is
Right.
what
And
she would
having just in
accuse
her
it.
previous quote said the best books rather than the
Right.
like she didn't say the
Ex-
most important books there. Yeah.
exactly. And then also this litany of young, straight, white, able-bodied English as his first language. It's like almost a checklist of
Yeah.
like,
She forgot
well, you
sis.
can
She
write
forgot sis.
yeah, right. Like you can write a novel if your legs don't work.
Yeah.
Like you can write a novel if you grew up speaking Russian. Like I just
Yeah.
don't. It all seems so bizarre that like that makes you want to say like Rebecca Mackay, I've read your work. You're good at expressing like what people are thinking and feeling. How can you be so naive about talking of your own criteria and your ability just to choose good books when you have this internal articulable checklist like ready at hand at any moment about the people who are allowed to talk about identity. It's fascinating.
Yeah. It felt to me like she and the guy who wrote this article, Mark Tracy, and the guy who wrote the original article, Jacob
Yeah,
Savage, that's being
yeah,
mostly savaged in this article,
yeah.
all made the same mistake, which was to
Yes,
assume that to write a good novel today was to write a novel that was an exploration of and reflection of identity and specifically the identity of the author. Like the opening of this article blew my mind. A Los Angeles father, once an aspiring screenwriter and now a professional ticket scalper, spends his spare hours calculating the extent to which younger, straight, white male novelists have been frozen out of the literary world. He pens a jeremiad against both publishers and critics who, he avers, no longer value great writing and a cadre of writers who are no longer interested in telling the truth about society. It sounds like the premise for, well, a literary novel. Does it? Saul Bellows Moses Herzog, who wrote defiant letters to personages living and dead, meets the 21st century. Watch the advance money sales and recognition roll. So he's not only saying it looks like a literary novel, it sounds like a prize-winning, top of the list, best-selling. Yeah. Like, no, it doesn't sound like any of those things. It sounds like what it is, which is like a guy's Substack post or like post in Compact Magazine. Like, all of these people seem to think that this is the thing a novel should be. And I do think that it is that assumption has also meant that this assumption and the desire to publish important works has determined a lot of what has gotten published in the last 10 years. And a lot of it has been, by my lights, as boring as it would be if a white male wrote just about his identity. I mean, there are identities that maybe like have gotten less airtime and like are more interesting to hear about, but that's not actually a good model for writing novels usually. Like it seems like it's only a good model for writing novels when there are particular identities that are especially underexposed and everybody could benefit from, like, oh shit, I didn't know this was a type of person. But like
exactly
under normal circumstances, that's not a good idea for how to write a novel.
Right. That line from Mackay. Right now, one of the most important things being written about in America is identity.
Are those the novels you want to read? Or are they just
And straight, young, white, able-bodied men can't do that without getting too angry. So that's why they're not winning the prizes. It's taking so much for granted that is it makes for a hollow, ridiculous article.
Yeah. And I'm totally with Ethan. Like it may be in some bizarre specific cosmics, like it may be sort of technically that if you write a novel about like crying about being a white guy, that you can't sell that as easily as you could write a novel crying about being a different identity. But like, I don't want to read either of those novels, to be honest.
Yeah. Talking about crying about being an identity.
Wait. What was the Sam Lip site, which I thought was the closing note? Is the idea that literary novels will save white men from the Tate brothers, the novelist Sam Lipsyte said in an email. I'm not sure I see that. Goebbels wrote a novel, you know? What? What? Was he just joking? Was he
he's just fucking around. He also just today I got his blurb of my new novel.
Oh yeah.
So I don't want to.
No. Totally, Sam Lipsyte. Yeah.
I'm on Team Sam Lipsyte. Whatever he wrote in this article, I agree with.
Like Sam Lipsyte, I support Goebbels' novel.
Goebbels writing a novel.
That was my conversation with Brian. To hear us talk about the Book of Job, along with 150 plus other episodes, go to SLEERICKETS.substack.com. Put in your email address. I will give you a week's access for free after that. It's pretty fucking cheap. If you have some expendable income and would like to support the show in a special way, you can sign up to become a motherfucker of the arts. It costs a little more, and it makes it possible for us to keep doing what we do and for other listeners to enjoy the show as well. If you have trouble paying for The Secret Show, but you would really like to listen to it, send me a note. And for those of you who object, didn't you know we were dumb lefty atheists on this show? Weren't you aware of how poor an understanding of economics we have? How could you possibly object? Thank you all for listening. You can reach me with all of your objections, political, aesthetic, economic, or otherwise, at SLEERICKETS@gmail.com. And with any luck, I will be speaking to you again very soon. Until then.